Hey everyone, it's Michael Goosebumps fan. I hope you're doing well today. I have to keep my voice a little low because my wife is in the next room working, so give me the benefit of the doubt. If you can't hear me, forgive me. Turn your volume up, bud. Anyway, I have a book review for you. I am so sorry it's been like 2 weeks since I've had any kind of reviews up. My life has been so scattered and busy, and like my wife and I stay busy all the time with family stuff we have to do. We had a wedding to go to this past weekend, so a lot of time went to that. Mother's Day was Sunday. Just constantly everything. I hope you got to spend some time with your mom if she's still alive. Be thankful for your mother. She's wonderful. Anyway, my review today is for a Give Yourself Goosebumps book, and this is book number 14. Probably my personal, possible favorite cover from all of Goosebumps, or Give Yourself Goosebumps. Not the whole of Goosebumps as an era and a franchise and everything else, but Give Yourself Goosebumps. This is my personal favorite cover, I believe, from what I remember. It is number 14, The Creepy Creations of Professor Shock. As you can tell, too, this is a robot story. It looks like it. It's really not, but it looks like it. I have to admit, I'm kind of let down with this book. I really have to be honest with you. I'm really kind of bummed about how this turned out. It was a good book. It was a good book. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was just kind of... The robot storyline was a letdown. And I'll get there as to why without spoiling anything for you. This is always a spoiler-free channel. You know, anytime I review something, if I'm going to talk about spoilers, I'll tell you. That cover's pretty cool. One of my favorite things about it is the little holographic designs they have on here is probably my favorite looking of all of them. It's very cybernetic, very chip-like from a computer system. I really like that. They always change those around depending on these earlier covers of what the actual topic is. That's pretty cool in my opinion. So anyway, The Creepy Creations of Professor Shock. Of course, Professor Shock, the sort of kind of villain of this book, but at the same time kind of not, depending on what line of the story you're following. He is also in the Goosebumps movie. He's the goofy-looking scientist with the really long hair sticking out everywhere. That's pretty cool. I was really surprised to see him in the movie when I saw the movie back in 2015 and then found out who he was. And I've been waiting to read this book for a while. A lot of people have recommended this book to me, and I hope that you guys will not hate me for my opinion on this. I was really let down. I really was. And I was expecting more of a... You know, I have a fear of animatronics. I have a fear of, like, Five Nights at Freddy's and Chuck E. Cheese and stuff like that. It just really gets to me. And this book, I assumed, was going to be an animatronic story. Of course, my favorite of the whole Slappy World series that I think has the best ending and the best story is It's Alive, It's Alive. That's the newest Goosebumps series, Slappy World. And It's Alive, It's Alive is a story about robots. Or a robot, and it's come to life and they don't know what's going on. It might be in the hallway watching you when you sleep and stuff. It's really creepy. Really, really creepy. I love it. It scares me to death. You have stuff like another Goosebumps book I love too. It was called Frankenstein's Dog, and I love that. It's mostly having to do with a robot, and it's great. It's also a spin on Frankenstein. I really love that book as well. Two of my favorite Goosebumps books ever from the franchise. Way up there in like my top 10. I love Goosebumps so much, and when I have books like this, I expected more of an animatronic horror story. I really didn't get that here, and that really let me down. Kind of starting off with the plot, I have my notes here on my phone. That's why I'm looking down as I talk about these things and read these things. It's the only way I can really remember things because I've had such a busy life the last month or so. It's been really hard to have all the details memorized. So I'm glad I had this written down because as I look through it, I'm like, I don't remember any of this stuff. So let's get to the basics before I knock over my protein shake down here. Starting off the story, of course, you have two friends who are twins. It's a brother and a sister. You and your two best friends are riding your bikes and stuff, and you actually kind of travel over to the oldest part of town and find a house out there that looks pretty haunted. Apparently there's a sign out in front of it when you decide to kind of just go over to the house and investigate and walk around to it, possibly go inside of it. There's a sign hanging outside that says to come inside, and then the sign changes to danger with an exclamation point. And then you look away and you look back again and it changed again to, you know, just come on inside. Bipolar signs, man. Anyway, you and your friends go inside and it turns out that you meet the owner of this particularly haunted looking house, Professor Shock, who is apparently a scientist of some sort who builds things, and he's possibly an engineer of some sort. You don't really know what he does, but he basically had some movers that were going to come to his house and clean out the garage. I guess it was movers, whatever they're supposed to be. I guess they're movers, cleaners, I don't know. It doesn't matter. They were going to come and clean out his huge garage, and you and your friends volunteer to do it before you realize how massive this garage is. And then he says he'll pay you guys, and you and your three friends, the brother and sister twins, you guys go inside of the garage, you realize how enormous it is, and you're like, this is not enough pay for this. So anyway, you start working, he leaves you by yourself to start cleaning up. He tells you, though, before he leaves, not to go in the back room of the actual garage because that's its own place, its own lab and stuff possibly back there. And the girl of the two twins drops her ring and it falls underneath the door and goes behind that back door. And there's a lot of cool stuff inside of this garage, you know, and you end up making your way behind that closed door you weren't supposed to go behind, and you find a lot of cool stuff in there. A lot of little gadgets and doodads and stuff like that. A lot of inventions this man, Professor Shock, has made. He's a very wacky, weird type of guy. He kind of, in personality, reminds me a lot of Dr. Macbeth from... there's a Goosebumps GYG book about birthdays. I forgot what it was. I've done a review for it, so is Goosebumps Completionist here on YouTube, who I also recommend if you haven't read his video, if you haven't watched his videos before. He's a really fun guy to talk to, too. He's part of the Discord I'm part of, too. I need to make a video about the Discord and let you guys know about that. I'm in a couple of Discord groups, but they're like Goosebumps fans, and that's pretty fun. Cool people. I really like those folks. Anyway, so... as you guys are cleaning this place out, like I said, the ring goes under the door. You go into that other room to try to get your friend's ring back. I don't know if that ever said you ever got the ring back for her or not. I think you did as soon as you got in there. But anyway, this is kind of where the story splits up into two different directions it can go. Basically, there is one switch on a wall that's connected to a robot that's made of copper, which oddly enough, that ain't copper, bruh. That's like aluminum or silver or something. That ain't copper. Copper is what your penny is made out of. And even polished copper ain't gonna look like that. Even the cover didn't get the color of the robot right. It's got the red eyes, so it has to be the same robot. Anyway, there's one switch attached to that robot, and if you flick that switch, and this is where the story splits. Now, of course, this is a choose-your-own-adventure book. That's what the Give Yourself Goosebumps series is. If you don't know what that is, basically a choose-your-own-adventure book. I like to explain this every video so people know. As you read each page, it'll give you an option, a couple of things at different pages. You might go to the bottom and it'll say, hey, skip to page 9, or skip over to page 115 to choose one of these two options you want to take to go to the next direction in the story. And I use a bunch of bookmarks, and I go through and mark every different thing so I can get out all the endings. There's about 20 different endings in here, because I like to experience the whole book, and I think it's worth reviewing the whole GYG book when you do it that way. I don't know your methods out there. If any of you guys have a better, more efficient method, let me know. I'd love to hear it, because I have to carry around a lot of bookmarks to read GYG books. So anyway, I go through, I read the whole book, and at some point in a story, typically they'll have a direction where you take a fork in the road path. You have to either go left, you go through a whole storyline that has nothing to do with the right side of the story or the right side of the book, or you'll take the right path and it'll have nothing to do with the left side of the book. They're kind of their own secluded stories. And this one kind of starts off either the one switch that is connected to the robot that takes you kind of on a weird abandoned mall storyline, which was really kind of fun, but it was kind of later on in that storyline. It kind of didn't start off with the abandoned mall thing. That was interesting. I've never seen that in Goosebumps before. I'm surprised we haven't done more of that. I thought it would be more of the killer robot thing, and it was not. It has a little bit of that in there, but it wasn't scary. And GYG books are not really scary typically. They're usually more of the humorous type of stories. They have a lot of humor in there, a lot of fun to be had, and that's fine. There's not many that are actually scary. I've read a few GYG books that have genuinely scared me, but I've reviewed those in the past if you want to check out those. Pain House is one of them that I really love. That was a special edition book that was actually genuinely scary, in my opinion. One of the scariest Goosebumps books I've ever read in my life. But usually these are more adventurous and fun. They don't really have the best monster creations for these stories, which makes me suspicious as to whether R.L. Stine ever actually wrote these or not, but it doesn't really matter to me. It feels like his type of writing. Getting back to the point, though, this is a choose-your-own-adventure book. So at one point you choose between two different stories. If you take the robot switch story, at some point you kind of get tied into, again, Professor Shock being kind of the villain, and his robots are supposed to be chasing after you, but there's not really a whole lot of interest with that. There's other villains that come in the book, like a guy named Red and a guy called Deep Voice, that are not really all that great. I just wasn't invested in that storyline as much. I think it was kind of weak, which surprised me because I love the whole animatronic thing. I think that scares me to death. You know, usually you can do something really fun with that. I don't think this always pulled that off, and it's not bad at all. It's really not bad. I didn't love that part of the book. Now, the other half of the book, the other switch you can choose to, is connected to a pinball machine. And I felt gypped on this one, because the pinball machine is kind of mentioned in one aspect of another ending on the other storyline about the robots. And I was like, okay, so we're kind of going to do like a pinball adventure machine. You know, you get in the pinball machine or something, and it's like you run away from the metallic ball flying around in there. No, that's not how that story goes. You hide behind the pinball machine after you pull the switch, and there's a mirror between the wall and the pinball machine, and you get sucked into the mirror. Yeah, I felt ripped off. So this whole storyline advertises a pinball machine adventure type of thing, which could have been really fun. You could have done a whole video game, Wreck-It Ralph type of thing. They didn't do that. Instead, you get sucked into a mirror And it's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland thing. It's filled with Alice in Wonderland references constantly, like the looking glass and stuff. Basically, this world runs backwards, right? So let's say you're being chased by a tiger or a bull. You have to run towards the tiger or bull to get away from it. If you try to run away from this thing, it gets closer to you and it can basically almost kill you. It's real odd. Really, really odd. So it's kind of a backwards land. Now, in my personal opinion, even though I felt gypped because I didn't get the pinball machine storyline, this storyline with the mirrors and trying to find the queen's mirror inside of her palace somewhere out there in this weird backwards mirror land thing that Professor Shock is kind of trying to communicate with you and talk you through this place, tell you what to look for. That mirror storylines, to my surprise, I liked more than the copper robot thing. I was surprised by that. And I will say this too, I don't usually comment on this. I used to comment a lot more about it than I do now, but a lot of the time I try to reference how many of these endings that you get, out of like the 20 endings throughout this book, how many actually land in a more satisfying way. I'll tell you this, I don't think most of them do here. I really think most of the endings here are kind of weak. They don't really hit me the right way that I really wanted them to. It's kind of a letdown. It's kind of a letdown. Again, especially with the animatronic storyline. I thought that whole robot storyline would be the most effective to me. I was kind of excited to read this book just to have that before I start getting into more summertime type books and hot weather books that are left over that I might still have floating around here that are not camp books, because I've read like every camp book you could. I was just bummed out and really let down with how this book went in that regard. But the mirror storyline, if it wasn't for that, I would have given this a lot lower rating when it comes to the end of the video when I rate the book. I would have given it a lot lower rating if the mirror section of this book had not been better the way it was. It wasn't great, it was creative, it was fun, it had a lot of humor to it, a lot of cool things. The endings that I think were actually better in this book were tied to that mirror storyline, pinball machine switch storyline. The robot stuff, they had like one or two endings that actually worked and landed for me. Most of the time it didn't. So, yeah, it's kind of a bummer to have most of the endings really not hit here. There wasn't like the best puns that could really hit here. There was one involving a dot that was kind of cute, I guess, if you wanted to say that. But overall, I mean, it wasn't... This was not a great book at all, and I'm not trying to be rude or mean about it. I know a lot of people had kept recommending this book to me. I think it was based off the cover, because the cover is so great. I love the color scheme with like the blue and yellow and the silver. Oh, it looks so pretty and so just nice. I love the robot picture there. I don't know who drew that, but it looks great. Also, this is Henry's book. If you happen to know where Henry is, this is your book, Henry. If you happen to come across this video at some point in the future, I got it from Thrift Books. So why'd you give your book away, Henry? Why would you do that? Anyway, this is a more common book to get your hands on in case you want to pick this up at some point and have it. It's one of the easier GYG books and old classic books in general from the 90s to get your hands on, so that's not a problem if you want to read this. You might enjoy it more than I did. I was let down. I expected more of an animatronic story based on the cover, and it really wasn't. It was really kind of a letdown in that respect. I don't know. But the mirror storyline made up for a lot of issues I had. Anyway, when it comes to Give Yourself Goosebumps, number 14, The Creepy Creations of Professor Shock, I had a good time with the book. It's not my favorite by any means. It's just okay. It was fun at times. The other half of the book, the mirror stuff, is the most fun, I think. It was very unbalanced. Very, very unbalanced, which is also what I said about Batwing Hall, book number 2 of Give Yourself Goosebumps that I reviewed previously. It's my last book I actually reviewed, not just the last GYG book I reviewed. That one was kind of the same situation. I felt like it was a very unbalanced book. This one felt tremendously unbalanced, just like that. So, it's a bummer. It's a really big bummer, but I'm glad it's over with. I hate to put it like that, but I'm glad I finally got through the book. It's been like 2 weeks of reading this. So it's done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm going to go back to reading regular Goosebumps books right now. Start doing reviews for those. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I have like 3 or 4 Horrorland books left to review, and then I'm done with that whole franchise, that whole era of Goosebumps. So I don't know if I'm going to do that, if I want to read some classic stuff or some Most Wanted stuff and kind of get closer to finishing that up. I think I have even less Most Wanted books left to read. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I might finish up Horrorland and Most Wanted throughout 2021 before I take my big break in December for that whole month. But we're going to see. We'll see what happens. Anyway, when it comes to this book, if I had to rate The Creepy Creations of Professor Shock on a 5-star basis, I would give this book about a 3 out of 5 stars. Again, I would have totally rated this lower if it had not made up for itself on the mirror section of the book. Again, 3 out of 5 stars for me, and that's all I can really give to it. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be rude to you guys out there who love this book. It is just not for me. For whatever reason, this one it did not hit me well with the whole animatronic thing and the way I thought it would. Not that I wanted to be scary, I just wanted to be more creative. But in that robot section, I love the whole abandoned mall thing. That was a great situation and scenario to be in. We've never seen that in Goosebumps to my knowledge. So that was fun. I really like that part. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Creepy Creations of Professor Shock? Did you love the book? Did you hate it? Put your thoughts and comments down below, guys. I would love to hear what you have to say about it. Seems like a lot more people like this a lot more than I do. I think Spongy is going to be like me about this, though. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. So we're going to look down there and see what he thinks. I'm curious what Lou thinks about this, too. Anyway, thank you, guys. God bless you. Have a good week and a good day. Goodbye.